All right, it is time for our weekly financial forecast. We're joined by Tim Fitzwilliams of Fitzwilliams Financial, talking all things mortgages today. Tim, I know that this is something that so many people focused on and concerned about. If not for them, then for their kids or their kids' kids. Mortgage rates and housing costs are huge concerns. Why has this become such a difficult thing to reckon with?
Yeah, so it all goes back to the crisis that we're having with oil, right? And so countries sold U.S. bonds. They got rid of them to kind of protect their own stuff.
Yeah.
And so when that happened, that flooded the market. And when that floods the market, the price of the bond goes down. And bonds kind of work like on a seesaw. So as the bond goes down, the yield goes up. And so that's where the rate went up. So the rate went up to 4.5% on the 10-year Treasury. And then mortgage companies kind of look at that and say, this is how we're basing our mortgage rate. So that put the 30-year fix at about 6.6%. So it's a game of, if this oil crisis ends, are we going to stay in this environment? Or will things kind of maybe go back a little bit nicer as far as interest rates go for the consumer that wants to buy a house?
Right, and you make good analogies, seesaw, game, but I don't know that those are the words that consumers want to hear when they're trying to buy a house. So what does a consumer do right now?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think you have to do what you have to do in your life, right? Don't hold things back. It's not that big of a change, right? But that value is subjective, so everybody has a different opinion on that. But you should look at it from the standpoint of, you could always refi later if you needed to. You know, but a lot of people are probably going to be very attentive to the rates, and that may cause some issues as far as supply on the amount of houses that are available, because people might just sit back, you know, because they don't want to have to go back out there and pay that new higher rate.
Right, and it seems like one thing after another with the housing market, which makes people even more tentative. Now, obviously, in terms of signs, we're looking for a solution to the war in Iran, an opening of the Strait of Hormuz. Beyond that, what signs in the market should people look for to know, okay, I can get back into looking for this again?
Well, we talked about it a lot. The market is kind of absorbing this, and the market's doing well. The question is how close are we getting to that energy crisis cliff, if you will? I look at it like a plank. How close are we? And we're starting to get closer. And the closer we get, the more impact we're going to have on oil, the more impact you're going to have on all these other things, just like the housing market. So we're going to see changes in all different markets the longer we have this conflict stay at the forefront of everything that's going on.
You said you see us starting to get closer. Why do you see that, and where is that tipping point? When do you walk off the plank? What are you looking for?
No one knows that answer.
Right.
That is the talk on Wall Street. Where is the edge of the road? But you kind of get, instead of like loose talks, you're going to get more serious. Things are going to start happening faster. More people are going to get involved. More countries are going to get involved. Nobody wants to be in this situation. So eventually, it kind of gets into my not in my own backyard theory that we talk about in economics. So you're going to have neighboring countries being like, wait a second, I don't want any of this. And even people that are allied with Iran might start being like, okay, now you're starting to affect us. So eventually, the rubber hits the road, and then things have to end.
All right, that's what we're all keeping an eye on. We're all keeping an eye on you, Tim Fitzwilliams, joining us every Tuesday. We appreciate it very much. That financial forecast in our 4 p.m. news. If you have questions you want answered, email us, financialforecast@13newsnow.com.